Tuesday host for Witches of the Moon, and this week's subject is to discuss the Wiccan read of "An it harm none, do as thou wilt," or "do as thou will." I'm going to have to ask for your indulgence a little bit this week because I've been seriously unwell, bedridden unwell for over the weekend with some major stress, so I'm going to try my very best to keep this flowing and making sense, but it might be a little bit simplified this week because my brain is just a little bit fuzzy still. So, we start off with the fact that technically I'm not Wiccan, and although I am not Wiccan, I did start my studies within Wicca. And I've said before that I studied for 5 years before I even started to put anything into practice, and there are some parts of the sort of Wiccan path that I do carry with me, the Wheel of the Year being the primary example, although you can of course find historical and cultural roots in each and every one of the festivals that go beyond the history of the modern Wicca. That being said, I spent a lot of time reading books about different variations of Wicca, and I still have quite a lot of them, and a lot of them have actually come with me, even though I've lost a good many of my books over the years, for one reason or another. Relocation mostly, and having to move away and not being able to take everything with me. So, I spent a good amount of time and a lot of books reading around Wicca in general, and a lot of the messages do speak to me. And I'm aware that there is an awful lot of discussion and debate around this concept. And one of the things I found interesting was the harm none also applies to yourself, which a lot of people often forget. And then there seems to be a lot of people that are either in one very firm camp or another. There are people who absolutely and utterly reject the idea as an excuse to behave in whatever way they feel. You know, they might say, oh, I don't believe in any of that because whatever. Excuse, I'm going to hurt people, I don't care. I'm going to do what I want for my own selfish reasons. So I've heard that over the years, and people like that tend to be derogatory towards the Wiccans, saying that the Wiccans are unrealistic. Fluffy is the term that gets thrown around, and I always feel a little bit queasy when I hear that term. I don't understand why not wanting to hurt people amounts to you being head in the clouds, unrealistic, or somehow uneducated. I don't feel that at all. And then there are people who strictly follow this idea to the nth degree, which is possibly unrealistic as well. And I think, as with any religious, I hesitate to say doctrine, but you know, it's sort of guidelines put in place by religions, and Wicca, of course, is a religion rather than just a spiritual path. It is classified as a religion, and in the same way that, you know, Christianity has lines, and the problem with these lines, of course, is that they're very open to interpretation. So everybody who you speak to about an it harm none will probably have their own experience, their own interpretation, their own feelings on the matter. I read a line this morning which I think sums up better how I feel about it, which is do good and good will come to you, and the reverse being true as well. Especially once you are tapped into energy work. You will, feel the energies around you, you begin to understand your own actions and the implications and the further reaching implications of your energies. When you open yourself up to a path of witchcraft or Wicca or paganism, or all of these things which have a similar but not the similar thread running through them, it is hopefully, and for those who continue in it, a journey of searching, of soul searching, of knowledge searching, of looking to better yourself and the world around you. I've said in my own videos that what a witch means to me is to become more aware of the world around you, of wanting to engage with things, of seeing the pure, awesome, awe-inspiring power of and beauty within nature, to feel that there is spiritual energy running through everything and everybody. And this is where we get the idea of working with crystals, which are in shock because I'm not in shock because I'm still sick. And people work with crystals because they feel those energies. You know, each stone is a part of the earth. The earth is a part of the sort of connections of energy work. And energy work is very much where I am right now, discovering the intricacies of energy work and the amazing and painful experiences that can come about as a result. So from my perspective of everything is connected, we are not as removed as we pretend, and we are not as removed as society would have us believe, mainly because materialism and consumerism and all of that work on a basis of believing we are disconnected from one another. Because when we honestly start to believe that we are not, then we realise that by hurting other people, by causing harm, by exploiting others for wealth or material gain or whatever, we are basically stabbing at the heart of something which is connected to us. And once you know it and feel it and believe it, you can't unbelieve it and unfeel it and unknow it. Sometimes I feel drastically depressed when I see all the stuff going on in the world, and I have to hermit myself a little bit sometimes because I feel that on a really deep empathic level, and it hurts. And what can you do? You feel like you're one person, and you drastically want the world to open its eyes and stop believing in all of this nonsense, and stop the intolerance and the hatred and the exploitation that goes on all over the world. Because we are all connected. There is an energy flowing that can and will connect us. And I often sort of say, we're all on our own path. There are many paths to walk, but we're all walking. And the disconnect is wrong. And the disconnect is what is promoted by those who want power, I think. And many of those who would encourage you to harm others might want power for themselves in some way or another. Now, another thing I've read, which is a slight sort of twist on that, is do no harm but take no shit. And that's a picture, it's cycling around. And that, I think, is trying to counterbalance the sort of people that are saying that Wiccan and the Wiccan Read is all fluffy, because it's not encouraging you to lay down and be a doormat. It's not saying people have the right to harm you, because harm none includes yourself. So it's an unfortunate circumstance of the world that people in general are innately selfish, and we all have our failings, our lettings down. You know, we all behave in some point in our lives badly towards one another. We all do it. We're not saints, we're human beings. And we've all had people harm us, and through whatever reason. I'm at the stage now in my life where I try to be as honest as I can. And it hurts people sometimes, and I sort of prepare myself for the fact that I might harm them. I try to be honest and you know, hope that that counts for something, basically. Especially when you find yourself in a situation where hurting one person or another is impossible. So, you know, what if you get trapped between two family members who have decided at whatever stage that they're having a family dispute between themselves? Then what do you do? Because you are then thrust into a position where likely both family members wants you to take a side. It happens. This is just, you know, an example. I've been through this myself. And if your conscience dictates that one person may actually be more right or truthful in the situation, and that's what your heart is telling you, then what? What if one of your family members has harmed the other? Physically, emotionally, verbally, and the other person feels attacked and you feel that they have been attacked. Even if you, in your best state of consciousness, in your best conscience decision, know that sibling A has been hurt and they didn't do anything wrong technically, which is almost, you know, there's almost never that circumstance. There's usually two sides. But say that person was completely innocent of any wrongdoing and person B had harmed that person. Even if you stick up for or stand by person A, you are still harming person B in one form or another. They may feel betrayed as you as a family member. They may feel that they did nothing wrong, even if you think you did. And it all becomes a very difficult concept. So do what ye will and it harm none is, I think, a guideline more than a definite rule, because no matter what you do throughout life, at some point, whether you are consciously aware of it or not, whether you have done it on purpose or not, you will hurt another human being. Maybe you never intended it, which I mean, anybody who's following the witch's path properly and for any amount of time doesn't have the luxury of ignorance, because we are aware of our actions and we train ourselves to be aware of our actions and energies and those of the people around us. You know, I've seen people within the path which have claimed ignorance, and I don't believe it for a second. I just see that as adding insult to injury, personally. I don't believe anybody who could engage with goddess and god energy cannot realise what they're doing. There is foolishness and there is mistakes, and then there is refusing to own up to your mistakes, which is doing even more harm possibly than the mistake itself or the purpose action itself. I've also seen other people in the similar paths ask others to harm other people, which obviously is so far against the whole idea of harm none that it becomes something ugly and hateful. I don't believe in that either. I personally feel that relationships between two individuals, be they friends, colleagues, or whatever, is their business, and how are you to get involved? How would that causing harm or gossiping or any of that aid either person or yourself? I don't believe in actively seeking out to harm other people because of what I often describe as a sort of negative poison. I think if the actions of an individual are constantly bringing you harm or poisoning your soul, then you need to distance yourself from that person. If that person keeps coming back up in your life, or a similar situation keeps coming back in your life, it may be that the powers that be are trying to teach you a lesson that you have to go through to keep learning, to keep evolving on your spiritual path. That you have to be tested. I mean, I follow the Morrigan and I know all about being tested, trust me, and this weekend has been a painful experience and a painful reminder of how life-changing, soul-crushing and throwing into sharp relief every failing that you have can be. But as for harming people on purpose, you know, in saying things to manipulate people, what has always come to my mind is, why on earth would you want to? Apart from being a witch, let's leave that aside for a minute. As a human being, why would you want to harm another human being? Is it the complete disconnect that they are a human being? That they have feelings and their own problems, their own joys, their own tears? Is it ignoring the fact that they have a heart, a mind and a soul? Is it some kind of warped sense of power or pleasure that you're getting from harming other people? In which case there is something dearly and deeply wrong somewhere that you need to address. There's some pain within you that is driving you to harm other people. And as witches, I see it all the time, and like other people trying to harm other people, and the most popular discussions are always on curse work and hex work and purposefully harming other people. Why do you want to? I don't feel the need to go out of my way. Even, I understand that people get angry and upset with the actions of those that have harmed them. That's a slightly different topic. And then, but then harming them doesn't make you feel any better. That being said, I have no qualms with things like return to sender or reflection of negativity or healing work or banishing work. And I say healing work, and you have to think about this, and people might think, why? How is healing work harming anyone? Well, what if you do healing work for people who don't want it? What if you do healing work and that does affect them, but then their body or their spirit hasn't fought by itself and that leaves them in a worse state of affairs? The far-reaching implications of harm none are incredible when you take them to their fullest conclusion. And that's why I think it's a guideline more than a set rule or doctrine, because it's impossible for the best of us, for the people who try their damned hardest. Nobody is a saint, and there are going to be situations where no matter what you do, somebody's going to be harmed. At least that has been my experience. Again, this is my experience. This is how I feel on the subject. And I honestly do believe in what you put out, you get back. I've seen people argue that there is no such thing as karma, and nice people finish last. And I think sometimes people who are trying to do good do come at a disadvantage in a society that promotes self over community. I understand that trying to do good by people, especially when a lot of people are so stuck that it can be a frustrating experience. But the onus is on you to improve yourself. The onus is on you, on the person that you want to be, the sort of spiritual growth you put in place. Do you want to be a better person today than you were yesterday? And do you want to be a better person tomorrow than you are today? It's a hard... I don't want to... Sorry. It's a hard fucking experience. I told you I'm going to be a bit blasé today because I'm not very well. It's a hard experience because it's checking yourself. And I do it to me, and I still find myself in impossible situations where harm and hurt will come of whatever. And I'm constantly put in situations where I have to figure out what is right. And I'm recently been put in situations where I have to realise that I can't always completely just give myself either. There is the danger of that with the harm none stuff, because you end up forgetting that it includes you. You have to protect yourself. You can't accept negative energies all the time from people to stop them hurting. I can't do that because I'm fairly empathic, and when people come to me over and over and over again with the same problem and they don't listen and they don't care about solving their situation, they just want to offload all the time. They don't want to feel shitty, and they just want to drown their sorrows on someone else. My mother was like that. She didn't want my advice. Could say the same thing till I was blue in the face. She just wanted to offload her negativity onto me, and then I get abused for trying to help. And I had to realise at a certain point that there is no helping people that will not help themselves. And I've come to the realisation now where I have to start looking at strengthening myself again. Going for things that I want and stop being afraid of who I'm harming in the process. Stop trying to look after every individual in my life and instead balance it. I still want to be there for people, but I have to balance that with looking after myself. So I have to balance the idea of doing good by others with the idea of doing good by myself, and just keep trying to be a better person. I don't think I can ever say that I will reach a point in my life where, you harm none at all. Is that feasible? Is that possible? I have not found it to be so in my experience. The world is not perfect. Human beings are not perfect, and that's why we are at the stage we're in. We are not enlightened beings. We have not transcended to be with the goddess, or however you might see the completion of your cycles of life. We're still human beings. We're still flawed. We're still steeped in emotions, and we have to learn that not all of what we think is negative is negative. I've often heard people say, if you get angry, you're going to harm people. Well, yes, anger can harm, but anger in the right way can provoke right amounts of change. If people weren't angry about the lack of equality, for example, we never would have got the vote for women. We never would have made steps towards rectifying things like homophobia and racism and sexism, which is still problematic within our world, and these are coming up again because of the ridiculousness of what's going on in the world right now. And there is a lot of anger coming up at the confining of people and groups, and that anger is in its form is right and can be justified and can be used against those who seek to harm groups of people, who say that I read something recently about how they're going to try and stop freedom of religious speech on the internet, and I could not be more revolted by this idea. So we will find out how that gets on, and whether we'll all be allowed to speak soon or not. I truly hope that people see the danger of that. and the harm that will do. So that's going to be it for me today, before I get into political rants, which is something else entirely. I think I've covered everything I needed to. So I'm going to cover this with a final message. You may not be able to get through life without harming anyone, but you can try your utmost to do good, to do right, by people, by yourself, and by the world around you. Many blessings.